In almost every horror game you've ever played, the rules are pretty straightforward. You are the victim. You're the underdog with a flickering flashlight, hiding in a closet, trying to survive whatever monster is haunting you. We're used to being the good guy, or at least the innocent one. But it is exceptionally rare for a horror game to trick you into playing as the villain. Not a cool slasher, not a monster in a multiplayer match, but a genuine, pathetic, irredeemable bad guy. The game Mouthwashing, which is the topic of this video, does just that. It forces you to step into his shoes and watch the carnage unfold from the inside. It is truly a unique feeling when you realize that the person ruining everything, the person everyone in the room is afraid of, is you. Let's take a look at Mouthwashing. The game begins by showing us a screen of our current information. We're on a space freighter called the Tulpar. There are 5 crew members on the ship. The trip duration is 382 days, out of which 147 have already passed. At the end, we're shown the text, "I hope this hurts." And it just stays there as a reminder of what's to come. 0 days before the crash. We're sitting inside the cockpit of a ship. We're told that we have to steer the ship to our left in order to avoid the orbital body that is ahead of us. Instead of doing that, we steer the ship to the right, straight into the asteroid. The autopilot tries to save us, but we override it with an emergency key. After doing so, we leave the cockpit and go into the rest of the ship. But as we move through the corridors, we notice that we're going in circles. And at every turn, we're confronted with the mascot of the shipping company, Polly. It is clear that all of this is going on inside our head, at least everything we are experiencing after we left the cockpit. Each turn becomes more chaotic, and at the end, we're cornered by the deformed version of Polly. 2 months after the crash, we're sitting at a conference table with the rest of our crew, which consists of Daisuke, Swansea, and Anya. We're playing as the 4th member of the crew, Jimmy. They're debating whether they should enter the cargo hold or no. They're hoping that there is something useful inside since they're running low on food and oxygen. The cargo hold can only be accessed by using a code scanner, which only the captain has access to. Jimmy says that for better or for worse, he is the captain now, and he will do everything he can to solve the problem. After this, we are left to explore the ship. Its walls are covered in emergency foam that formed after the crash. We head to the medical bay. There, we find the final member of the crew, the former captain, Curly. He's missing the ends of all of his limbs. His skin is mostly peeled off or burnt. He likely ended up in this state because of the crash, which presumably he caused. Next to him is Anya, who seems uneasy and uncomfortable. Jimmy asks her if she gave Curly his painkillers, to which Anya responds that she didn't, since Curly is in great pain while consuming them. After insulting her nursing skills, Jimmy decides to give Curly the painkillers himself. From the sound effects of this interaction, we can tell that unlike Anya, Jimmy is uncaring and rough. After giving Curly his medicine, we find Anya outside the medbay in a distressed state. Not paying any attention to that, Jimmy tells her that they're running out of painkillers. Then, Anya asks him why did Curly crash the ship. Jimmy responds that it doesn't matter, to which Anya says that she has to believe that their worst moments don't make them monsters. After this, we go and retrieve the code scanner from the cockpit and use it on the cargo bay doors. Inside, we see hundreds, if not thousands of boxes on the shelves. Whatever is inside must be useful. But we don't get to see what the cargo actually is. At least, not yet. 7 days before the crash. We are no longer playing as Jimmy. Rather, we are playing as Curly. The game is actually split between their 2 points of view. All of Curly's scenes unfold before the crash, and all of Jimmy's after. So when you see one of those indicators, you can figure out who we are playing as without me explicitly telling you. Now back to Curly's point of view. Anya is in the room with us, and she explains that she isn't too keen on doing the mandatory psych evaluation on Jimmy. Seeing the discomfort this would cause Anya, Curly offers to do the evaluation in her stead. After this, we roam the ship and we meet Jimmy in front of one of the rooms. He tells us that there is never enough entertainment on this ship. Going inside the room, we can see what he meant. Daisuke had gotten himself stuck inside the emergency foam. Swansea argues with him and expresses his frustration with his intern to Curly. After we free Daisuke, we head to the cockpit to conduct the evaluation on Jimmy. The usually short descent to the cockpit was now replaced with an incredibly long set of stairs. Of course, this is another one of those sequences that unfold within our head. This long descent perhaps represents Curly dreading this conversation. At the end, we fall down into a pool of red liquid beneath the night sky. Just like before, the scene becomes more chaotic each second. Emergency signs and broken ladders rise from the ground around us, and eventually, the sun itself rises before us. Everything goes white. And there is just a lone door in the distance. Going through it, we end up in the cockpit, where we carry out Jimmy's psych evaluation. After the evaluation, Curly questions Jimmy how things are off the record. To which Jimmy responds that he likes it here. He likes that they are in control. He also expresses how he is annoyed by all of the praise that Curly gets. Curly says that he loves his job, but he also can't help but feel trapped since he can't progress any further. Jimmy simply puts it that Curly has reached the highest rung on the ladder, and now he's wondering if he chose the wrong ladder all along. Even though Jimmy is still Jimmy, we can sense that he has a different relationship with Curly compared to the rest of the crewmates. Then, as the two of them are wrapping up, Curly receives a message from the higher-ups, and as we are about to read it, we are brought back to the present. Letters flash on the screen, and we can make out a phrase: "Take responsibility." A simple title of a chapter, right now, but this is actually one of the main themes of the entire game. Inside the darkness of the cargo bay, we can see a TV in the distance. Once we approach it, we watch several strange channels, and on one of them, we see an advertisement for Dragon Breath mouthwash. 2 months after the crash. Here, we learn that every single one of the boxes in the cargo bay is filled with mouthwash. This is the sole product that we are delivering and risking our lives for. Anya makes a remark how the sugar content of the mouthwash offset any of its potential use as a disinfectant. Swansea takes a swig of it in hopes of getting drunk, and offers Daisuke to join him. 6 days before the crash, Curly is on his way to tell his crewmates of the news he got from the higher-ups. But as he enters the main hub of the ship, he is surprised by the rest of the crew, who made him a surprise birthday party. They're only allowed one birthday celebration per trip, and they decide to give it to Curly. Once we sit down to eat the cake we made, seeing our strange behavior, Jimmy asks us what's wrong. Then, Curly breaks the news to the rest of the crew. In the letter, he got informed that Pony Express, the company they work for, is shutting down, and that all of the crew members are being let go. Jimmy instantly gets angry and insults the rest, and the pitiful lives that await them. He's especially angry at Curly, since he's the only one that is getting what he wants: a chance to climb higher up the ladder. Curly tries to calm him down, but it's to no avail. The jealousy that Jimmy harbors towards Curly and the anger within him are simply too much at the moment. With everyone angrily staring at us, we cut the cake. 3 months after the crash, Curly's cries echo through the halls. When we go to check on him, we question ourselves if he has been given his medicine. We go downstairs into the cockpit. There, we find Anya and Swansea having a conversation. They're talking about something we clearly aren't supposed to hear, since as soon as we enter, they stop and Anya tries to awkwardly converse without looking at us. Jimmy questions why they're up this late and also notices that Anya is crying. Jimmy then asks if Anya has given Curly his meds, to which she answers that she must have forgotten. In response, Jimmy says that he'll do it. As he looms over Curly, he tells him to stop with the noises and proceeds to have a monologue. Damn it, I know what everyone's thinking. The way they look at me. What could I even say? And then, what would she do? Here we are now, me in the driver's seat. Thanks for that. Open up. I hope these make you feel fucking better. After this, we're brought into the next chapter. The text, "Take responsibility," once again flashes up on screen, though it's still scrambled. We can assume that we're in a dream once again, since Curly is sitting on the table in front of us with a birthday cake. Jimmy sits down, and they once again have a short conversation about life. Here, Curly refers to Jimmy as his friend, and wants to share the cake with him. We're tasked to find a knife. The version of the ship we're currently in is in a lot worse shape than the one back in the present. Inside the cockpit, we find an axe stabbed into the back of the captain's chair. This perhaps carries metaphorical meaning that is related to something that happens later on in the game. Once we grab the axe and return to the table, we will find Curly on top of it. So we cut into him instead of the cake. 4 months after the crash. We see that several boxes of mouthwash have been opened, and nearby we find Daisuke laid out on the ground, drunk. We also see Anya contemplating to drink some, but ultimately she decides not to. She then tells us that not all of the medicine was in her office, and that there is some in the storage locker. In order to access it, we have to get the axe from Swansea, who is also completely drunk. Before we can take the axe, Swansea slams it into the large screen depicting the sunset. After using the axe to clear the foam, we find some painkillers and alcohol. Once we tell this to Anya, she asks us to give the meds to Curly in her stead. Jimmy is starting to get annoyed by all the tasks he has to do, but ultimately he agrees to give Curly his medicine. By this time, unlike before, Jimmy isn't aggressive towards Curly. Rather, he opens up to him and tells him how he underestimated the responsibilities of a leader. At the end, he tells Curly that he was a good captain. After receiving his medicine, this time in a peaceful manner, Curly begins to cry. 6 hours until judgment. We're in the cockpit and we lock ourselves in. On the other side of the door is Swansea, who is yelling at us to get outside. Eventually, Swansea breaks through the glass with an axe and reaches to open the door. But just then, we're brought back. 2 days before the crash. Curly and Anya are talking about the giant screen in front of them. Instead of the violent sunset that is usually displayed, now the screen is showing a serene picture of the moon. Anya points that there is a dead pixel in one of the corners that is bothering her. To this, Curly responds that he doesn't pay attention to the pixel. Instead, he enjoys the bigger picture. Then, Anya asks something strange. "Hey, why do you think Pony Express put a lock on the medical room door, but not on the sleeping quarters?" A strange but valid question, to which Curly responds. I suppose for the same reason they put a lock on the cockpit. Safety. 5 months after the crash. Anya's question about the lock wasn't pointless, and we will see why now. Daisuke runs into the room in panic. He tells Jimmy that they need help since Anya is locked inside the medical room. Once we go and check on her, she tells us that she was the one who locked herself in the medical room, and that she doesn't plan on going out. She states that she should have done this from the beginning. She used the lock for its intended purpose: safety. What she's hiding from isn't completely clear, but everything we have witnessed up until now points the source of this fright to one person: Jimmy. Daisuke and Jimmy decide that they need to get her out, and the only way to do that is by going through a vent that goes into the medbay from the utility room. There's just one problem with their plan. Swansea is guarding the entrance to the medical room and isn't letting anybody inside. After not being able to persuade Swansea, we cut into the future. 8 hours until judgment. Daisuke lays on the ground, heavily injured and bleeding. This was likely caused by his and Jimmy's attempt to get into the medical room. We have to find something to disinfect Daisuke's wounds. And so, we go to the medical room, and to our surprise, it's unlocked. But there is something strange going on. Half of the room is blurred, and we can't see it no matter what we do. The part of the room that is blurred is particularly the part where Curly is. Also, Anya is nowhere to be found. After this, we head towards the cargo hold. Next to its entrance, we find a tombstone. We can't read what the tombstone says, but we notice a pink hibiscus flower sitting at the base. This is the same flower that can be found on Daisuke's shirt. Perhaps this is foreshadowing Daisuke's fate. Once we make the incredibly long dream descent into the cargo hold, we find a note that says, "A blind beast, aimless and restless. You can't run from this." After this, the screen shakes and we hear a terrifying noise. Out of the darkness emerges a monstrous version of Polly, the ship's mascot. We have to be quiet in order to not alert this creature. Once we retrieve the mouthwash, we are brought back to Daisuke, who is in a horrible state. As we use the mouthwash on his wounds, we are brought back, 5 months before the crash. After not allowing us to enter, we decide to get rid of Swansea as the obstacle. We give him a spiked drink, and he faints after drinking it, allowing us to enter the room. Inside the room, we see that almost all of the ship's cryopods were destroyed by the emergency foam. All except one. Seeing this, Jimmy deduces that this was Swansea's plan all along. He wanted to escape the ship alone. After this, we see the vent they need to go through in order to reach the medical room. It looks incredibly dangerous, but despite that, Jimmy sends Daisuke inside. After a few moments of him being inside, he screams out in pain, likely suffering injuries we saw him with later. And then, after a few more moments, we hear him say this: "Anya, what did you do?" One day before the crash, we're taken back into the past. We're given the objective to find the gun. As we search around and go into the cockpit, we find Anya curled up in a distressed state. Curly asks Anya where the gun is since he knows she took it. He adds that losing her job isn't a good enough reason for her to take her life. He says that she can always talk to him if she has any problems. Anya responds that she didn't take the gun to hurt herself, rather she took it to hide it from Jimmy. Then Anya reveals that she's pregnant. Curly questions how, and Anya simply states that she already told him. Curly says that he can fix this, since he has known him for a long time. So we found out that Anya is pregnant and the child is Jimmy's. From the dialogue, we get the clear hint that this child is not a product of a consensual relationship. It is heavily implied that Jimmy assaulted Anya. This makes Anya's comment on there being no locks in the sleeping quarters so much worse. This also explains why Anya is always so uncomfortable and nervous around Jimmy. Here, we also learn that Curly was aware of what happened between Anya and Jimmy, but he seemingly did nothing about it. Then, we're brought back. 6 hours until judgment. We're standing in front of Daisuke, who is in the same state as before. The mouthwash did nothing but cause him more pain. It is clear that he isn't going to make it. Jimmy is being his usual delusional self, while Swansea is taking the situation quite seriously. He grabs his axe and gives Daisuke one last heartwarming speech, telling him that he was a good kid and that he could have taught him a lot. After this, Swansea raises the axe and puts Daisuke out of his misery. After this, Jimmy blames Swansea for everything, to which Swansea tells him that Anya has told him everything during their talk in the cockpit. He also reveals that he wasn't saving the last cryopod for himself, rather he was saving it for Daisuke. After this, we go into the medical room, which is now unblurred. There, we find Anya. She's dead. She intentionally overdosed. that was the only way she thought that she could escape Jimmy. After taking the gun she hid from ourselves, we exit the room. Zero days before the crash. We're finally on the day of the crash. Curly goes inside the medical room, and there he finds Anya crying. She informs him that she told Jimmy about her pregnancy, to which he had nothing to say and just walked away. She says that she's scared and doesn't want Jimmy around anymore. Curly assures her that everything will be okay and that he will talk to Jimmy, which he does. Jimmy is visibly angry with the new discovery and blames it all on Curly. He says that their lives will be ruined once the world finds out about the assault that happened. He says the only way to fix this is that all this goes down in a tragedy which none of them survive. After this, Curly is left in a daze while Jimmy walks off saying that he will take care of it. Shortly after, the ship's sirens go off and we are about to crash. Outside the cockpit is Jimmy with his head in his hands. Curly goes inside in hopes of saving the ship, but it's too late and he's hit head on. Now we realize that it was Jimmy who crashed the ship all along, trying to escape his responsibilities. Curly was just another one of his victims. 1 hour before judgment. Jimmy is carrying Curly in his arms and carries him out to the lounge. There we see the same table where they celebrated Curly's birthday party. All the crewmates are in attendance. The only difference to the last time is that they're dead. Jimmy imagines all of the dead crewmates celebrating, and Curly is shaking with fear. Jimmy then stands up and grabs a knife. He then proceeds to cut into Curly's leg. As he's slowly cutting his leg, Jimmy once again blames Curly for everything that happened. But once he plates his leg to the rest of the crewmates, he says that he forgives him. Take responsibility flashes on the screen once more, and we are brought back into another dreamlike sequence. We go into the medical room and we jump down the vent Daisuke crawled through. Inside, we find a note saying, "No turning back now." We once again see the pink hibiscus flower. After this, we navigate the strange halls of the station until we enter another vent, one surrounded by Swansea's axes. Inside, we see broken glass, wires, and emergency foam. We once again see a pink hibiscus. This is likely what the vent Daisuke went through looked like. After this, we are forced to confront Swansea. He's tied to a chair and a gun lays in the floor in front of him. Once we grab the gun, point it at his head and pull the trigger, we are transported into a graveyard where we have to face Swansea head on. After shooting him 3 times and defeating him, we are shown Swansea's last moments. Him and Jimmy are standing in the darkness before a screen, illuminating their silhouettes. Swansea talks about his life and how he managed to escape alcohol and turn to a better life. But all of that fell into the water as soon as he faced the first hardship. But he states that unlike Jimmy, he isn't a coward. He sees himself for what he really is. He only regrets not being able to save Daisuke. Jimmy assures him that he's going to fix everything. After this, he raises the gun and takes the shot. Take responsibility is once again shown as we look at Swansea's corpse. As we go through the ship, we see Curly or parts of him all around us. At the end, we find Curly himself strapped to a chair with valves sticking out of him. Having no food, we feed him his own leg. We use the valves that are scattered all over his body to line his digestive tract. After this, we turn around towards the TV that Curly is watching, and there we see something strange. We see ourselves. We're walking through the galaxy towards Curly that is lit ablaze. Curly says that he will take all of the blame onto himself and that Jimmy will end up as the good guy. He will take on Jimmy's responsibility. This is all, of course, happening inside Jimmy's head. Take responsibility We move through the corridors until we reach a womb-like structure. We grab the ultrasound that is nearby and begin to scan. Inside, we see a horse-like fetus. After this, a deformed creature erupts out. Then text appears. All clean. Really gets rid of that bad taste in your mouth, huh? Through wreckage, through silence, wash it away. This is a simple ad for the Dragon Breath mouthwash, but it is essentially what the entire game is about. A man desperately trying to wash away the bad taste in his mouth that his actions left behind. Now we have to escape the vents, avoiding the child that came out of the womb. It is a weird amalgamation of polys. At the end of the sequence, we end up in the darkness, surrounded by the IDs of our fallen comrades. After this, we reach a mountain of mouthwash, on top of which is Polly. He speaks and tells Jimmy to come to terms with his actions and to apologize. To this, Jimmy tells him to shut up and that he will fix everything. He says that both him and Curly can still make it. 0 hours before judgment. We're back in the present where we see Curly laying on a table surrounded by the bodies of his comrades. We pick up his body and slowly bring him to the cryopod. We place him inside and we switch to his perspective. Jimmy tells him that he's going to be okay. It's like he said, together they can fix anything. He says that he was proud to be his friend and co-pilot. At the end, he states that he fixed everything. Then, Jimmy slowly walks off and a gunshot is heard. The cryopod starts working and the game ends. Till the very end, Jimmy stayed what he truly was. A delusional, cowardly, narcissistic monster. Throughout the whole game, he's fighting an inner battle. A battle to take responsibility for his actions. He loses that battle over and over, and instead of making things right, he ends up hurting more people. Everybody on the ship is essentially a victim of his, but definitely the two biggest ones are Anya and Curly. Curly got his life and body ruined forever. And even though he's tragic, he's still somewhat responsible for what happened on the ship and for his fate. We know that Anya told him that Jimmy assaulted her way before the crash, but Curly did nothing about it. He only assured Anya that he'll fix everything. Jimmy also outright told him that he's planning on taking all of their lives, yet Curly just stood motionless and did nothing. Perhaps he just had a soft spot for Jimmy, since he knew him for a very long time, or he simply wasn't fit to be the captain, because every time he needed to take action, he ultimately didn't. This ties back to his dialogue about the screen. He's always looking at the bigger picture. He doesn't pay attention to that single pixel which can bring on the destruction of the rest of the screen. Simply based off of that, we can't call Curly strictly a victim in this whole story. But at the end of the day, he was just an honest man that tried to be nice to everyone. While Jimmy, on the other hand, is a pure monster that shows no remorse for his actions or pity for the people he has hurt. Which brings us to Jimmy's biggest victim, Anya. We can tell that Jimmy doesn't really like any of his other crewmates, besides maybe Curly. But one person that he showed more animosity than to anyone else is Anya. Throughout the game, he kept insulting her intelligence and her skills as a nurse. He saw her as a being that is completely inferior to him. That is probably why he assaulted her. He saw her only as an object. He didn't even seem to pay attention to her words, since in one of the scenes, Anya mentions that mouthwash can't possibly work as a disinfectant. Yet Jimmy uses it in Daisuke, thinking it will help his wound. Anya likely spent every day on the ship fearing the monster that is Jimmy, hoping that she will stay safe throughout the night. I hope this hurts. I can't help but think that this is something Jimmy said to Anya before he assaulted her.